Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Karan.
Hi, Didi.
Hi, Varsha. Hi. So, did you guys try the rest of the videos from last week? I think we shared them on this group also, no? In case you want to just download them, so you can watch them later if you feel like it. So we are hoping that this time I'm going to have all these available. We're trying to download all of them, even since now there's a structure. And if you feel you want to avail of any of them, whenever they're shared, just download and keep them at your end. Then you can watch them at leisure.
Hannah.
Hi, Rana. Okay, so while the others are joining, we'll just go through some images that I want to share with you to give you an idea of how today's what we're going to do today. So one part, we finished three interesting floral expressions, you might say. We've done pencil sketching, so that's very good for practicing your general art skills as well as just florals as well. And then you also have sorry, then we did the more realistic illustrations, and then we studied compositions. And then next thing that we're going to do today is convert all of this into a more graphic image. Now, the advantage of converting it into graphic is that you could probably make it into block prints or something. So you just need to create line art, which then is converted into another application. So you can use it for printing, you can use it for embroidery, you could use it for making etchings. So anything that requires you to convert it into just line and texture work, that's what we will be doing today. So while other people are joining and we still have another 3-4 people to come in, I'll just show you some patterns and then you'll probably be able to visualize our designs much better. So like we did the William Morris designs, there's a whole lot of patterns you see, especially in Indian architecture and even textiles. So I'm going to show you the architecture bit right now. So you'll often come across things like these, which are just a flattened image of probably a rose. And it's when you see an actual rose and you see this, you can tell that this is probably inspired by the rose, but how does one create an application like this of a rose or rosette? All these will look very familiar because we live around all of these prints. To the Western eye, these are very exotic, but for us, even in this, you will probably be able to recognize flowers that are familiar. Well, like, for example, this could be marigold, maybe. This could be maybe, I don't know, a combination of 2, 3 flowers. These could be sadapuli. This is just a vine. So all of these, and funnily enough, now these designs are from the tomb of Emperor Akbar, and was completed. This was completed in 1613. And then when you look at William Morris designs, you see many of the same kind of embellishments. So I won't be too surprised if 200 years later, William Morris drew a lot of inspiration from traditional Indian designs like these, as well as the patterns of, there's another textile called chintz, which came out of Hyderabad, which was also, it was so popular that it almost broke the English textile industry in
They had to ban it. Like we have it in history,
yeah,
and they had to ban it.
they had to ban the cotton textiles.
The changed textiles so that they could get some. Like
Yeah, they could
they just
revive.
couldn't compete with it.
Correct, yeah. So yeah, so what we're going to do today is just take a couple of floral motifs and convert them in such a way that they can be used in applications like this. Now, it's not important that you, from tomorrow onwards, you start doing woodworking or something like that. But what you can do is, even if you are creating a travel illustration of a panel on which you would like to illustrate something like this, knowing how to flatten flowers and create graphics out of it, you can just improvise. So you can complete certain designs which otherwise are not visible easily. And for that purpose, it's a good exercise to take real flowers, finish them as graphics. Sorry. The noisiest trucks in when you want silence. Okay, so over here, this looks like, this could even pass off like a lily, or parts of it could even be a hibiscus, which is what we're going to do today. And the intent is to just actually convert something complicated into as simple a form as possible, something predictable, something that you can just replicate without any changes, and yet retain the essence of the flower. What else do we have? Yeah, this is obviously a lily which has been very decoratively, almost realistic, has been carved into marble. But this is the flattened image of some flower. Now I can't even tell what flower this is because the leaf looks like it's a grape leaf, except it's 3-pronged. And this looks like a tulip, but then tulips rarely grow on something like a vine. So this is an artistic impression of whatever flowers that have been taken together. So we have all the freedom to do something like that. We are not required to make our illustrations like botanical illustrations, where you have to stay true to the form and structure of the leaf and flower and the bud and the structure of the growth of the plant. We can mix and match as we want, as the design requires. So I'll just go over the images that I've shared with you today. Okay, so we have a plain and simple regular hibiscus flower. It's a simple enough structure. You have 5 petals and you have this anther that sticks out of the center. The shape of the petals is also predictable. It's uniform throughout and it's got a beautiful texture that can be replicated very beautifully. In the past, I have done some very lovely graphics of hibiscus flowers and they've just turned out fantastic. So this is one of my favorites to flatten into a graphic. Now, whenever you are looking at reference images, look for more than one. Because now in this particular photograph, you have flowers, but the leaves are not very apparent. So you can get a second image where you have a second view of the flower. You could also look for something that has got buds and you have a clearer picture of the leaves. So if you're out in the field and you find some beautiful flowers, do click your own pictures. In the past, if you wanted to do anything with the florals, it would be advised that you bring a pot of that flower in front of you because there was no photography. But now you don't have to bother. But when you do click pictures, it's good to remember how you should click them. So choose various angles, choose various light and shadow effects, and also all parts of the plant, big leaves, small leaves, the joints of the leaf to the stalk, the bulbs, opening of the bulb, and any kind of detail that you can collect. Because then when you have to create a variety in your print, you get all sorts of references. This is, I think, just a simple lily, but we are going to do this later on. And this, I don't know what this flower is, but I just love the structure. So what I intend to do is show you how you can study various structures and then put them together into one kind of a print. Okay, so we're going to start with the hibiscus. So you can keep the hibiscus in front of you for reference.
Which one? The first one or the second one?
The first one, the single hibiscus. So if you can, draw directly with a pen. Don't bother with the pencil. Now, because the anther is pointing straight at us, it can be a little difficult to create a flattened look out of it. So we are going to turn that down and we're going to draw that part first, the center part. So let me just draw it out on the screen for you first. All right, so what I'm looking at is, this is the center, and I'm going to look at these places, a line that goes from center to maybe 10 o'clock, somewhere between 12 and 1, then 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock maybe, and 7 o'clock. So keeping these joints in mind, this is the place where the petals overlap. I'm going to look for a place where I can draw the central anther going downward like this. So it does not come on any joint. because that will just disturb the symmetry of the flower. I'm just going to have it come down on one petal, and I'll probably just finish it off in this space. I'm not even going to pull it down because it might just look too long. Okay, so first I'm going to be drawing this shape, and then I'm going to draw the petals. All right, now we are not going to make too many details, and we're going to simplify all the forms, right? So what we'll do is, and I'm not drawing a very large flower also, I'm going to draw it just so big. So the central anther is just going to come down in a smallish arc. Don't make it too large. So start off with a small C shape like this and pull this down in a C shape going towards maybe 5 o'clock. And here you can draw just a few circles. We have to simplify all parts of the flower. And then you can draw maybe these 5 teardrop shapes. Now, if this is the center, like I showed you, we have the petals overlapping. The petal on the left is overlapping all the other petals, meaning on its side. So we are going to draw one petal which is about this large, about the same length as the central part that we've shown, but a little distance away from the center. So what we'll do is draw 2 lines going sideways, and then you can draw a wobbly line like that. And this wobbly line does not have to be a wave. It can be an unpredictable wobble. In some places it's straighter, in some places the wobble is smaller, but at any rate, we're not going to make a V shape and a zigzag. We're not going to do that. It's a wobble, it's a wave. And the wave keeps changing. Now from behind here, because there's an overlap, we're going to make another petal about the same length outward, but the center of that petal is going to be pointing towards somewhere between 10 and 12 o'clock. And this petal is not wobbling as much, right? And then it's coming to the center. It could have gone out even more, I think, but it's okay. So if you make any mistakes, don't worry about it. This is just a graphic representation. So a few hiccups, a few lines not looking accurate is fine. And we can proceed in exactly the same manner. So you use the cues that you see on the flower, where to start the petal from, what size to make it, and what direction should you make it. That's about it. And this structure is fine. Anyone who is familiar with the hibiscus will probably look at it and say that this is a hibiscus. But now we can do something more to this. I'm changing from a 0.3 pen to a 0.1 pen because I want to vary the thickness and the texture. Now, if you don't have another sized pen or a smaller pen, use a pencil, because either you can vary the line in color, in thickness or in color. So either we can do a thick and thin black line, or you can do a black line and a gray line like a pencil would create. Now we're going to start creating texture. So for each of these petals, from the center, we will draw a gentle line going outward from the center in the beginning. Now remember that I'm not touching it to the center where we had created that first shape from. I'm leaving a little distance from there. But I'm touching the line to the outside. On either side of these, we will draw another line. And draw this very purposefully. So don't just let it randomly go. So draw it slowly and make sure that it creates some kind of balance in the petal and some kind of flow. So the space between all the lines has to be thought out. It does not necessarily have to be equal, as you can see, but it is consciously divided that way. Now, once these first 3 lines are drawn, you can then create branches from here. Some are big, some are small, but they are from a little distance away. And some of these branches, they go to the side, some go to the end. This will give us that beautiful hibiscus texture. And each petal will necessarily look different because we have not decided on a particular pattern of or progression of these lines. If you feel that there is a lot of gap between a few lines, you can make 2 or 3 lines also, or 2, 3 or extra branches as well. So what we've done is taken the picture of a real hibiscus and distilled it to identify what are the peculiar characteristics that make a flower look like a hibiscus. Now from the center, there is this dark shade that one sees. And if you want, we can also create an additional darkness, but again, some distance away. This is what I would do. I would create additional lines only in the center, but these are not part of the veins. They are just, and you can do this only if you're confident of your line. Don't merge them. See the detailing. They're not merged into one dark section. So be very careful, and that's why the thin pen comes in handy. If you are sure that you can make this, then do it. Otherwise, this is something that you can achieve even with color. You can paint this part and create that dark section. But don't do a scribble over here. That scribble looks really, really awful. So some of the things that I personally don't like, and it's not to say that that's wrong, but it's a matter of taste, is, let me show you. So sometimes when a texture like that has to be created, a very fine detail, and you've made this beautiful petal, all this is very nice. And then there's something like that that's done. This just looks so ugly. It has no structure, it has no balance. It just looks like somebody has tossed some cut hair into that space. So even if you have to, you should not be making lines very fast, but it doesn't take too long to just, make lines very thoughtfully. You can create a much nicer texture, you making the lines more thoughtfully like this. So this is the flower. Now, if you move to the next, yep, nice, nice. If you move to the next picture, you have the leaves also. So leaves are also fairly simple to make. You can draw just a central stalk like this, which will be two lines which are close to each other, and then end in a point at one end, and they are joined with a horizontal line at the other end. And then you have a serration at the edges. Now, if you're not sure of your serrated edges, please make the shape of a leaf. And these are heart-shaped leaves. And for serrations, all you do is draw a line going slightly outside of the pencil line, and then zig back to the pencil line, and then zag back outside. And you'd keep doing this zigzag where you keep going out and coming back in. It's a line that's straying and then coming back and then straying and coming back. That's how you can draw a good serration. And now even the serration is slightly rounded. So if you can see that much and create that, good. Otherwise, even something like this is fine. Go out and in. Now pay attention to how much out you have to go in. If you go too far out, then again it'll look like a very weird plant. So just because it's serrated, just making such a large serration is not needed. This just will look like some hibiscus leaf from a horror movie. We don't want that. It's a very gentle serration. And then we will again draw lines, texture lines that go from the center. And they're almost parallel, and that's what makes the leaves look very pretty. They're very disciplined. That's the one thing I really like about hibiscus, that their structures are so disciplined and predictable that it makes for a very, very nice subject. Now, in the same picture at the bottom, there is a hibiscus that's looking upward. So you can translate that also as a graphic. Now, we see only part of that image, so I'm going to complete it for you. So if you want, you can just follow with me. We're going to make it about the same size. So we're going to draw the petal that's in the front, and it's going to be about this size, the middle part of the petal. So that's like this. And from here, you're going to draw just the frill part of it. So this is the front, which is folding over. And then from the sides, we will draw part of the, so it's almost like we're going to draw half of this petal and half of this petal on either side. So you can create the petal shape like this. Draw that central anther up, and this time I'm turning it to the side, to the right side, because if it goes to the left, it'll just bang into the flower I've already made. And you can make similar, just a few circles to indicate the pollen. The same structure for the tip of the hibiscus. It's quite a characteristic shape. And then you can actually modify the petal shape and make it somewhat like this, so that it's more apparent and you get more room to create your texture like so. Now I like to divide all my texture lines such evenly through the petal shape. And these texture lines also give a nice order to how our eye moves across the design. So it's very important to notice how the lines on the flower are drawn. If you draw them even a little flat or a little inaccurate, it will change the look of the flower. We won't be able to see the flow of lines converging towards a hypothetical center of the flower. Because after all, we're just creating an illusion on paper. I can't help but constantly quote Rene Magritte's picture. This is not a flower. This is an image of a flower we are creating. So if you keep that in mind, you just have to say, okay, what is it in the reference image that is making that look like an image of a real flower? And my brain is convinced of it. I just need to take this one call, please. Okay. Now, because our flower has been drawn like that, we have the room over here to make a base, which is also quite pretty. Oh, just hang on. Okay, so we have like this cup shape at the bottom. There isn't much detail visible over there, except that it also has additional sepals on the side. And we have a stalk. So in case we want to draw a stalk, we have the option of drawing this. We also have a little structure of a leaf from the stalk with the flowers on top. So you can have something like this. Draw the center of the leaf. And then you can draw one side, you can draw flat, and the other side you can draw serrated. So it looks like the leaf is rolled up behind. And this can be slightly thinner also, or it can also be serrated. Okay. Now, do you want to give the pink lilies a shot? Do you want to try and make your own graphics using those pink lilies? Just a small graphic image of that. You have 3 lilies that are pointing in 3 different directions, and you could try drawing one of them just in lines and look for all the features. Look for what makes them look like the character of a lily. It's not going to look like a hibiscus, so pay attention to the shapes and the proportions, and you should be able to do it. Yeah. So I'll give you about 10 minutes to do it, and then I'll also do it so you can verify if our techniques have matched. How's it going?
In the reference image, you can see many drops of water on the lilies. We have to draw that also.
You just omit all those water drops. You can actually omit anything that you find unnecessary.
Okay.
Okay, so this 3/4 view of a flower can be a little tricky, but like we've done this flower, you can, let's see. Very nice, Bhakti. Looking good. Good lines. The best bit about these flowers is you can fit them in the blank spaces, which otherwise you wouldn't know how to fit. Like if you've got a particular triangular space over here, you can just fit it there. So you draw the petal in the foreground. Oh, mm. So one of the advantages of these of drawing in just pen is that this was something that was done in the past for books because color printing was rather expensive. So when you draw it in black and white, you can print plates of these and have the image available to a lot of people. And that was for maybe botanical requirements. But you could also use this as the first basic graphic you want to make other kinds of artwork. I used a lot of these line arts to then fill out with texture doodles, and it look really beautiful. So if you've got a good strong graphic to begin with, then it's only more and more lovely to fill that up with more texture. But what I found is that many people don't pay attention to the details. Yeah, nice, Rayana. To the details of the flower itself and the nuances of the flower. And then if that is done very haphazardly, then it does not look really nice. Now, in order for my flower to look relevant and those anthers also to make sense, I'm making the lines come inward, but only halfway, and also converting them into a dotted line. So the line starts off strong, but then ends in maybe a dot or trails off, you could say. Okay, if I'm suddenly screaming, it's probably because my cat will have jumped on something. So don't don't get too startled.
Ma'am, can you focus your camera?
Yes, it is. Is it out of focus?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
I
better
bet.
now?
Yes.
Okay. Now, even for this, I don't know if I have a reference of the stalk, but I can always imagine a stalk and make that so that it's completed. And its leaves are rather slender. So you could just draw a couple of leaves like that, and the graphic is then more completed. Now, something like this really helps out to create even more imaginative applications of the flower. Um, have any of you seen the old Disney version of Alice in Wonderland? It's a very old cartoon, the original Alice in Wonderland.
Yes.
So in that there is a sequence in which she roams around uh, a garden, and all the flowers are animated, and there's a beautiful dance with all the flowers. So when you create something like this, you can imagine that this flower has movement which are very anthropomorphic. Oh, please zoom out, please. Out, 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 you too. Sorry, I'm training them to sit quietly in the studio. I can manage them when I'm working, but then during class, it's a little crazy. Yeah, so you can imagine that a lot happens in terms of movement with these flowers. Everything can move, everything can do something. This flower can be almost like a predator and can eat up another being just because of how it is. It almost looks like that um, the pod from Aliens. So once you break down the data of what you see into something like a graphic, then you can take it into another direction and make it either surrealistic or fictional and create your own land with all of these. Now, the last one that we have is those the green flowers, which are not flowers, or they could be flowers. I don't know. They look like hops. I know hops look like these. So this is also a very interesting structure where you can create the image of these. Just identify any one of those structures, and you'll have to start from the top. So you can have.
Ma'am, can you please show the lily for one more second?
Oh, okay. Yes, nice. Nice, Rana. Good.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ah, very nice, Karan. Beautiful. Very good. Strong line. That's what we need. Are you done, Bhakti? Nice. Good.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, Varsha. Okay. So now I'm showing you the green flowers. These ones. And I'm just going to look for any one of these which has a good structure, not too big, maybe one of these or these. So I can figure out how to draw these petals. Now, the reason I'm using this is because if you want to make a composition of all of these graphics and we want to make them like a William Morris print, we need a variety. We need something that is either a standalone flower, but that can look boring. So I'm going to entwine it with the green flowers. I'm just going to call it hops. So here we are going to start from the top. First, leave the, this is like a U-shaped petal that I have made. And then it's a flattened U on the sides. I'm simplifying the form. And then in between, I'm going to keep building this U-shaped form and a flattened U on the side. Till it all converges at the bottom in one single U shape. And then because we can't leave the top just so, we can complete it like this and give it some sepals like these. And attach it to a vine. And this can be attached to a vine gracefully. The vine will be a little wider. And from here you can have a second one come out if you want. So you can decide how you want to build these structures. And each of these will also have some leaves. Now the leaves over here are quite interesting. I think these are three-pronged leaves, if I'm not mistaken. No, they also look like regular. Oh, this is also like a hibiscus leaf. But we can change that. We shouldn't make the same leaf for both of these. So I'm going to change them and make it more artistic. So I'm going to make a leaf that has three prongs. So this is 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to give it a shape like this. Now here for the hops, we can create a texture with lines along the edge. This looks quite lovely. Now, when I'm making these lines, even in pen, the movement of my pen is such that it starts moving downwards before it touches the pen. So it's the edge of that line is usually rather it's very light. It's not one fat dot that comes. I think this can touch. And we can have some veins on this as well. And if this three-pronged leaf is too complicated, you can also just make a single regular leaf.
Is this shape okay?
एक minute. Huh? Yep, looks good. So this is how you put together a bunch of designs that you think might work together. Now, if we get into a design theory, you might say, okay, we need a certain amount of variety of things. You need objects which will occupy a large amount of space, medium space, and small space. The large objects will be fewer in number because they will occupy a lot of space. And just to balance it out, medium will occupy medium amount of space, so medium quantity, and small objects you would have more so that they can occupy equal amounts of area. So in that way, if you design a print, it usually works pretty well. Okay, 1 second. All right. So now what we can do is think of a design that we could probably do on a card or a bookmark, where you use all or few of these elements to create some kind of print. So if you have a sheet of paper, loose paper, you can take that, or you can just cut out a sheet from here. I have some cut sheets from before. Just any sheet is fine. You can, in fact, even use the back of a bill or something if you want, just to see how you can practice a creative design anywhere. In fact, sometimes you can make a bookmark or you can make a card. I think I have enough for a card, so I'm going to try making a card out of this A5 sheet, which when folded will become a 6-sized card. Oh, I hate when that happens. So we are making a print which is going to be all over, which is going to fill this up. So we need to think about some kind of structure. We can have a vine, excuse me, that runs from top to bottom in a shape like this. Then we can have our hibiscus flower in the center here. And we can have our lilies on the side over here, 4 lilies on the side, and those hops somewhere like this. In
I
between.
can't see the sketch.
Oh, sorry. Uh, like this. Can you see it now? There's a shape like so.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay. So just as random as this is fine. and then we can start drawing pretty much exactly the same thing that we've drawn there. We just have to be careful that some things are going to overlap. So we have to make a few things first, which we want to stand out in the foreground. And then the stuff that is not in the foreground is going to go behind those items. So I'm going to make the hibiscus, the vine, the lilies on the sides, and then the hops. Now the hops in some places can be on top of the lily, some places it can be behind the lilies. And then after all of that, we can make the leaves to fill out the whole pattern, and we can really fill this up. Now again over here, don't worry if your design is not symmetrical. Maybe your vine on the left is curved a little too much. The vine on the right is curved a little less. We are not worried about that. All of that will look nice as long as we complete the design. Okay, so let's start exactly like how we done before. But of course, if you're thinking of a different kind of design, please go ahead and make your own. The whole point is that you are able to make your own design through this as well. But if you want to, you can follow my composition. The hibiscus is in the center. The two vines are running along the side like that. And then I'm going to draw the two lilies or lilies on all four sides, much smaller size. And somewhere either before or after the lilies, there will be the hops. Okay, so here goes. This is the So this will be a lot easier now after you have made those rough illustrations, because one thing is you'll be able to make the lines a lot more confidently and accurately. You know where everything has to go. So any errors that were made in the first illustration can be corrected over here. Now don't do the details at this stage. We can come back for the details. See, as I predicted, one side is much rounder than the other side. But keep your line confident. Don't worry about that symmetry. So now in this case, because of this asymmetry, I can easily structure my hops in an asymmetrical fashion. So I could fit one bunch of these hop flowers somewhere here, and the other one on the opposite side somewhere over here. Now for the lilies, I'm thinking I'll make them point upward. So I'll have the petal in the foreground pointing like this. And instead of 6 anthers, I'm just going to make 3 because otherwise it becomes too big. I'm stylizing the petals as well and trying to keep them looking uniform, but that's not necessary. And now I'll repeat the same design on the opposite side. Now there isn't a reference in our illustration. So if it's not very critical, I when I do this commercially, I would just take the flower that I've used as reference on the left side, digitally flip it and make myself a flower that's pointing in this direction, or just tilt my artwork so that I get one of those flowers to point in the direction that I want and use that as reference. Now the top doesn't always have to be that all flowers point in towards the center. So just for a variation, I might point the flower on top outward. Many times in a design, if your design decisions are unpredictable, they're like a suspense at the end of a movie. When it becomes far too predictable, it almost looks robotic. An unpredictable design, at least in my opinion, is proof that the maker of that design actually put some thought into it and is not satisfied with uh, the predictable designs. And as usual, this could just be my preference. This does not have to be everybody's opinion. Okay, now this is how I'm going to cut out my design. I'm making a leaf over here. So I don't have to make the full stalk of the lily. And I'm also going to make a leaf on the lily. So I balance that part out as well. Now, as it's filling up, you realize that the spaces are, I'm just filling out spaces, but they're not equal. All my elements are not equal everywhere. Now, if I were to do this on a computer, it'll be very easy. I could just just make mirror images and copy paste and everything. But then that's not the nicest thing to do. Secondly, when you are working on a design that's a very predictable mirrored design, you can always use tracing paper and create that by hand. That is also an option. But there is a charm in designs which are not always perfect. And that's what I want you to also see. It's not necessary that all the designs we make have to be absolutely precise, but they can look absolutely perfect in whatever form we make them. And very delightful. Now, these are all the big elements that I want to put. Beyond this now, I'm just going to put a lot of leaves. So the hibiscus leaf can be sticking out from underneath the flower, and it can come out maybe somewhere over here, because there is a nice space over here. There's like a vase that's just meant to receive the hibiscus leaf. And on top, if I make the same, it'll just look very bad. So I'm going to make another leaf, but it's going to be pointing a little to the side. We can do the same a little bit over here, if you have space. So look at just dividing the space first equally as much as you can. Maybe one can stick out from here as well for a little bit of symmetry. But now this hop has come too close, so I'm not going to bother ignoring it. I'm going to incorporate it in my overlap. And this is now where your elements are going to start going underneath the existing elements that we've already put. Now, I've still not put any texture on the flowers or the leaves because there are so many lines. Sometimes if you start off with making a texture right in the beginning, it can get very overwhelming. If you put so many elements that the texture becomes implicit, then you don't even have to make the texture at all. Now, wherever you see blank spaces, you can put any kind of leaf shape that you want to. So by blank space, I mean, now in this space, I want to put some leaves. So I will not put it in such a way that it's going to bang against existing petals. I'll first put it in a place where it goes in the space between. So I would probably make something like this. Occupy all these spaces first. Then we can make another shape of leaves, which has maybe 2 leaves, not a third one yet, because it'll bang into this existing leaf. Now you must look at this whole line of leaves and decide whether that's something that you like. I usually don't put a line like that, more than 2 leaves, and then I make a branching. Or then I'll put something on the opposite side. So I don't like these lantern structure leaves at all. But it's all up to you. If you like it, go ahead. But do respond to it. Look at it and say, okay, what's it looking like? Am I happy with how this structure has turned out or not? And if we are all being true to ourselves, many of you might not agree with my design choices. I hope, because then otherwise I'll just be making clones of me. Now here I want to make some leaves that go out into the bleed area. So anytime you draw a design where some of the motif is going to get cut, that is called the bleed area. And the reason why it's called a bleed area is because if this were to be printed, we would print a larger space and then we would cut the design out of it so that we don't get a blank line over here. So that extra space, that extra printing that is done is called the bleed, BLEED. And you cut in the area short of the bleed area. This is just a technicality. It doesn't affect our life too much unless you start doing print design or something. So little by little, our design is filling up. Now we have some empty spaces on the side. We can have some hibiscus leaves only coming inward because it's easier to put a leaf here than put a flower or a part of a flower. And that will occupy the space. You don't have to do too much then. And on the other side, you just have a smaller part of the leaf.
Aditi,
Yeah.
if we have to repeat this, say we scan it and in a software we want to repeat this pattern, like the leaf at the bottom.
Huh.
So we are drawing a part of it. So the other half, should we draw it on the top?
No, that won't work because this is not a repeat. We are not going to use this as a repeat. It's going to be a single design. But if you wanted to make it on a textile and you wanted to repeat, then this would be a tile. And we make a tile in such a way that it's the corresponding part will be at the top. So we have to do it on all four sides, on all sides, so that next to it, when the next tile is in placed, this will continue, not like this. So it would be
Okay.
the rest of this leaf that will continue. So at some point when we do print design, I think it's there somewhere, I can't remember. I'll go through this because it's good fun. You
Sure.
don't need it when so this will come in October when we're doing surface design, but we'll do it.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, okay. So now at this stage, you can choose whether you want to just paint on this or we can also make a few textures because the center is looking rather blank. So here we can choose how much texture you want to land up making. So like we did in the beginning, first just draw these main lines. And then if you feel, only then add additional texture and then maybe not too much also. So overall, the distribution of all the lines should not look too bulky in one area or too little, too much space in another area. Here also we can, yeah, I think this should do. This is enough. You can also make a few lines on the leaves. And again, if you are the types who loves texture, you can just go to town with this. Just make as many lines as you want and it'll still look nice. But do it consciously, do it with a certain sense of deliberation, not just because. I love making textures, so I can just keep doing this. And now this is something that you can also doodle in a waiting room, or where are we waiting these days? I would also suggest you can do this in a boring meeting, but I don't know what kind of work culture your offices might have. So take that with a pinch of salt. But I know of several of my students who do a lot of doodle art during really exceptionally boring meetings, which nobody understands why it has been called, but you just have to be present. Now, after all of this is done, either you can paint it, or you can paint the positives, or you can paint in reverse. So you can just paint in the space in between. You can, what else can you do? You can just leave it like this and just use it this way also. Trying to see. Karan, could you share the picture on the group? Then I can have a look, because the pencil lines are really fine. I can't really tell. I think I can. What else can we add? Yeah, some more lines here. So now beyond this is all overlapping, and I can keep making all of this denser and denser. And you can have some stuff sticking out from here. Any place where you see there's a white space, look for how much space you want to leave around that white space. Keep it balanced always. We can have a stalk come down from here and have one of the lily leaves go up. It just keeps getting better and better. And once it's filled up, you'll notice that that whole asymmetry and the imperfect lines, all of that just doesn't matter. The whole thing just looks so impressive. I think we could also make a few lines from here. So if you want to do more of this, what you should aim for is spending some time in understanding the varied forms that are available to us. And you must also have a like a personal discussion that if you were to substitute the hibiscus for a rose, would the other elements still work? How about if we had straight lines, would that work? How about if the vine broke up into more than just a single vine, will that work? That is the kind of variations that we have to look for. So I've omitted making that dark center for the flower. I don't think this flower needs it. Okay, any questions, anyone?
No, ma'am.
All good?
Does it have to be symmetrical?
No, it doesn't. You can make it completely asymmetrical. You could just have a single vine going, half a flower seen, whatever you want. I sometimes just get caught up in symmetrical designs. I just love those very nice paisley-like things, wavy things. But you can do whatever you want. Very nice, Dipti. How do you like it?
I quite enjoyed it.
Isn't it nice? It's looking
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. I vaguely remember when I was very little, we went to Taj Mahal, and I don't know, I don't remember anything else, but I remember seeing the inlays of the marble work.
Yeah,
And
this
I was
spectacular.
quite small, but it flashed back. Those lines was very, yeah. And also these
Nice.
embroidery books, as to see, my mother used to have them.
Yeah,
Look, I quite enjoyed this exercise.
very nice. And this is quite easy, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not, once you know how to flatten those shapes and then you
Yeah.
realize that they don't have to look like the original, you can do a lot with this.
Yeah, as to see these swallows and larks having these twines in the on the end of
Yeah.
handkerchiefs design. So
Wow, did she embroider all of that? Wow,
strangely, I used to trace them and copy them and put them in my book. We used
nice.
to do that on collars and
I love
handkerchiefs, and
that.
yeah.
I love embroidery.
Thank you.
I wish I could just sit and do embroidery. That's the next thing. So if you want some inspiration for this, I'll share one Instagram account with you. It's very beautiful. I love to see her designs. It's called Little Patterns. So you'll see how she creates the same kind of illustration that we've done right now, but also does, because it's a graphic image, look at how she's put in eyeballs into all of these flowers. And you can play with so many compositions. You can use it with text, you can use it as line art with buildings. You can use it with calligraphic flourishes. See this? It's all just put in together one into the other. You'll now see also how line has been used over here to create texture. Yeah, some of the ones that I really like. See this? So over here, of course, there's a lot of tracing, a lot of drawing in pencil first, and then selecting which of that you want to ink, and then creating these overlaps. So this is probably the next stage. But from our card, you could create more elements that are filling up through the backdrop and make it just as dense. Yeah, this is also very beautiful. She's put snakes in through the flowers. It's a lovely texture work. So go through this account. It's really beautiful. Lots of inspiration and a lot of treatment. You'll see how she's used line textures to make different kinds of flowers and leaves, how thick and thin lines work, how she's used dots in some places, textures in some places. So you could take inspiration from some of these and then create your own forms. All right, so this is called Little Patterns. Okay, so that's it for florals for this year. Next week, we are starting food illustration. Oh, wow, very nice. Very nice, Karan, looking good.
And complete this part over here. It's in pencil right now, but you won't be able to.
Lovely. It's going to look awesome.
Thank you.
So next week, we're going to do some pencil sketching with fruit and vegetables. I want to do as much pencil sketching as I can with as many topics as we can. But all of these, the structure of the class is such that you have been given some tools that you can practice. So now that you have these patterns, think of how many places you can make those patterns with florals and focus only on florals. And we'll be doing something similar with food. And at that time, you can then start incorporating those together. And then in April, I think we're doing animals and birds. So then you can take that and put that together with this. So little by little, you can creatively just increase your repertoire. Okay. All right. So I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.